there, Liz. Liz Baitson. Welcome to our conversation. I'm Hyacinth Fraser, Property in Action. Liz, tell us something about you, who you are, what you do, property strategies, etc.
So my name's Liz Baitson and I am working with Chris Hamilton. We have a commercial conversions development company called the Hamilton Partnership Group. So that's my main focus. I'm also an ambassador for the Property Professionals Association with Cam Jo Howe. So that's something I'm really passionate about. And I've done a little bit of other bits and pieces. Well, I've actually touched on all the strategies. So these are now my two real focuses, because I really feel that I've found where I should be.
Okay, fantastic. So, Liz, I know there are a number of things that we want to talk about. I'm just going to refer to my sheet of paper. We'll probably touch on all of them. So, one of the first things you wanted us to look at is, like, who are you in property? So what does that mean for you when you say that?
Oh, it's so important. It's so important to me. And I feel really strongly that before anyone commits to a strategy, they work out who they are and what their skills are and what their life situation is, because I think it's very easy to be seduced into particular strategies because of the rewards, the kind of purported rewards. But if it doesn't suit who you are, then it can be disastrous. So in my case, I am quite a nerd. I'm sure other people have heard me talk about my background. I come from banking. I come from financial services, analysis. I'm a mathematician. So for me, walking into the world of entrepreneurship is quite a big leap. I'm used to given a process, do what I'm told, and analyze the risks, and to jump from that into self-employment is incredibly difficult. So yeah, it took me about 3 years to work out who I am and what my skills are in the world of property. And it's so easily done that you can go into the wrong strategy for you because you haven't actually had a good look at yourself. I really believe the first thing you should do is, one, look at your family situation. Are you the breadwinner? Can you really afford to take time out to start a new business up? Do you really feel passionate about, I don't know, for example, SA? You need to really understand hospitality, even if you're outsourcing. So there are lots of things. What's your appetite for risk? Can you support your family for a couple of years if you wait for a big project to mature? There are so many aspects in pre-qualifying yourself for a strategy, and it's taken me 3 years, and I want to help people take a lot quicker than that, really.
Yeah. So before you mentioned SA, so just to say that serviced accommodation, can just talk us through a little bit more, Liz, about your 3-year process to arriving at commercial conversions as a strategy with your business partner?
Yeah. So about 3 years ago, I went to a free property education event, which totally blew my mind. You know, it was the first time I heard about being an investor as opposed to an employed person, and I thought, yeah, this makes complete sense. The way I've looked at money has been completely wrong the whole of my life. So as soon as I figured out, okay, this is what I want to do, I want money to work for me, I started looking at the kind of basic strategies, you know, the buy, refurb, refinance, and the buy to lets and the HMOs. And I was just so eager to get a deal over the line, I just jumped in, which was a really bad thing to do. I was so desperate to get a deal over the line. And I was also really aware of the emotional sale that was happening at the property event. So I thought, I'm doing this alone. And it was tough. What I needed to do was build up a network. And that network had to come, it came from nothing. I literally had to go along to every single property meet. Sue Sims is somebody that I've been associated with for a while. She really did take me under her wing, and she introduced me to a lot of people, which have been really instrumental in me figuring out who I am and where I am. But I still had this urge to get a deal over the line. So I spent a lot of time going to networking meetings. If you follow my Facebook profile, you'll see hundreds of pictures of me at different events, eating and drinking. It was incredibly important to build those contacts up first. What I then did was, as I said, I had a little chunk of money and I threw it at a deal. I should never have done that, because that deal is still going on. Like a couple of years later, it's quite a tricky deal. It was a very, very cheap property, which was it was actually a renovation project, and it's been really, really tough to get that dealt with, because it's had lots of problems. It's had trees growing up through the walls and foundations. So I took on a project because it was cheap, and it entered me into property at quite a low level. And that was a big mistake. I shouldn't have done that. I should have continued on with networking. As I said, I've got people like Sue by my side, helping me, guide me, and I should have listened more. So as time went on, I started looking at rent to rents, which is another kind of entry level. I bought 3 of those down in London, and so there's 16 units there, and they perform fairly well. But in terms of replacing my income, I guess they do to a degree, but they're also hard work. I think anyone that believes that HMOs aren't hard work, they are hard work. Well, mine are particularly. There's a lot of traffic, there's a lot of turnover, and it's the tenant type really determines what kind of lifestyle you're going to have working with these HMOs. So I've learned a lot about HMOs. I met some lovely people that do single lets, and I believe that is a fantastic strategy if you've got the cash. If I had £1 million, would I want to buy £1 million worth of buy-to-lets? Probably not, but I probably would buy about 300 grand's worth single lets, because they're always good. They are your bread and butter property strategy, and I will always have respect for that, because I think if you get them in the right area, you know, that's your legacy to your children. You really don't need to put very much into it. So as I said, rent to rents, HMOs, little commercial renovation, flats, all of those kind of things, but it just wasn't enough for me. It felt that I was going too slow, and I hadn't really found my footing. So then we heard lots and lots about serviced accommodation and how seductive is serviced accommodation. You see these figures on Facebook, and it just seems such an easy way for money. And I started looking into that. And I live in the most gorgeous town. I live in Warwick, so we have huge amounts of tourism. We live right next to Leamington Spa, so I decided to get a beautiful listed flat in Leamington Spa and have it as SA. But I also wanted to self-manage it, and that's where I fell down. It was really difficult. It's really difficult. It's a job. It is a job. And in the end, I started to realize doing everything on my own, the networking, getting into JV partnerships with people I didn't really know very well. I started to lose my way, and it was just about the time I got this SA that I started to lose my way a bit, and I started to think, this is all a bit crazy. I can't cope with all the different strategies. I don't know what I'm doing. The money's okay, but it's not enough. And then I found Cam Jo Howe, and he just totally cleared my mind. He was like, what are you doing, Liz? What are you doing? You're messing around with so many different strategies. You're not focusing. What are you after now? And I said, well, right now I'm doing SA. And he's got the most amazing skill at breaking down a deal. He can break down any business and deal in seconds, and he'll tell you whether it's going to be successful or not. And so he broke down the deal that I was doing in Leamington, and he just said, stop it. And I needed that. He said, stop this right now. This deal is no better than doing a guaranteed rent deal on it. And I don't know if people have heard of guaranteed rent, but it's very similar to rent. It is essentially rent to rent, but it's often renting out the whole unit as one instead of splitting it into rooms. And certainly doesn't involve cleaning or anything like that. And he just broke down the deal for me. We rejigged the numbers, and all of a sudden my SA turned into a guaranteed rent property, and the SA was going to make about £500 a month, and my guaranteed rent makes £450 a month without any hassle. And I was like, thank you. Thank you so much. So now I've just got ASTs in there, and it's really, really simple and straightforward. But again, it wasn't enough. Yes, £450 net a month is nice. You know, you only need a few of those to survive, I guess. But, so it gets where you start to, the numbers, you always live up to your income, don't you? And you start thinking,
So you mentioned your journey, and it's been a bit of a journey. And just now you mentioned AST, assured short hold tenancy, and you mentioned Cam Joel. So I just want to just look at the broader area of education. I know there's been a lot of talk on Facebook recently about education and people doing due diligence. So I don't want to like rehash or rehearse that again. But what are the key things, in your opinion, that people need to give consideration to before jumping into an educational program?
Oh goodness, yeah. I have strong views on this because I'm very aware of the emotional sell, and I believe that you should always make a financial decision, especially when we're talking about handing over a lot of money. Property education is expensive. It's one of the more expensive ways of training. You know, accountancy has an expense. All the professions have an expense, but property education is particularly expensive. So before you make a decision to hand over thousands and thousands of pounds, I think it's really important that you have pre-qualified yourself, as we touched earlier, on that particular strategy and that particular company. So for me, I'm now getting involved with a group of really amazing people in working out how to pre-qualify yourself. The questions in this sort of survey that we're going to launch will be things like, where do you live? Most people will want to invest around their area. So if you live in an area where service accommodation works really well, that's fantastic. You've got that as an option for you. But if you live in the middle of nowhere and you're trying to run an SA unit, it's just not going to work for you. So remote investing really only works for me, particularly if you've got a lot of money and you can and a lot of contacts. Remote investing for me works because I work in commercial conversions. I can invest nationally, and it doesn't really hurt me because I don't need to be there. But most people going into property will invest around their area. So geographical analysis, number one, before you jump into a strategy. Two, your personality type. Who are you? I mean, I see a lot of deal sources with the same background. They seem to have sales and recruitment in their background, and that is a very specific type of training and personality. You need grit, you need resilience, you need to be good with rejection, and I am rubbish at all of that. That is not who I am. So really understanding who you are as a person, will help you decide on which strategies for you. If you're an introvert, if you really struggle with negotiation and sales, I would suggest maybe deal sourcing probably isn't for you. But I'm sure there are ways to train yourself in these skills, but that will take time. That will take time. So personality, geographical location, and number one, your financial situation. Do not get into debt to be educated. It is not worth the mental stress. There are other ways to do it, and I've seen people get into debt, and that is not a wise business move. Anybody that you business will teach you budgeting and being sensible with money. So it's incredibly important to work out, can I afford this training, and if I can't, is there another way to do it? So those three things for me are my due diligence before I even think about a strategy. But certainly mentorship is completely different from sitting in a classroom. Mentorship, I believe, and small groups are far, far, far more valuable. And again, mentorship, you need to do your DD on your mentor. Have they done what they've said they've done? How long have they been in business? What companies do they earn? Testimonials from other people that have worked with that person. Everything you would do if you were buying another large value item. You don't buy 10, 15, 20 grand car without searching for alternatives and looking up the reviews, and you know, you have to do that with education.
Yeah, and the other thing that you spoke about that you thought was important as well in terms of your property journey is deciding on who your JV partners might be. So just talk to us about some of the considerations there.
Goodness, yeah. I mean, at the moment, as everyone probably knows, I work with Chris Hamilton, and he is now my business partner. We own, as I said, the Hamilton Partnership Group between us, and that partnership took a long time for us to nurture and deeply understand each other and each other's values. For me, working with somebody at that level is a marriage. You will be owning, very likely, property together for a long time. And that's incredibly similar to being married and buying, or even being in a relationship and buying a place together. There's a massive commitment there. So it's very important to do your DD on not only a person's sort of financial and business background. You know, LinkedIn is excellent for that. You can contact people for references. There's nothing wrong with that. I checked out everything that Chris had been involved in. I looked at his projects in Oman. He was the project director of an enormous development that made, they created 4,000 houses and hotels and shopping malls. And so, you know, he's an incredibly accomplished man. And that in itself really gave me security in who I was working with. So it's very important to do your DD business-wise, but also personality-wise. You need to get into quite a few debates, be controversial, test them, stress test the relationship. Don't jump into a JV partnership with somebody you've just met. You really need to spend, I would say, a good 6 months speaking to someone, their family, their friends, because this really is a marriage. It's a business marriage. And I'm so lucky now to be doing commercial conversions with Chris, because I do believe he's the best person that I've ever met that does them. I know and I trust him, and you do have to love the person. There's got to be love and respect. So it's a really big deal. Just be really careful.
Great. So I think that links nicely, actually, in a way, to one of the other things you've been speaking about, and that is the importance of valuing yourself in the property business and, you know, getting paid. Do you want to say a little bit about that as we work towards the close?
Yeah, absolutely. Valuing yourself is so important. Often people come to this and they're new and they don't feel that they've got any value. I would argue you've got so much value. For me, I had to work out who I was. And for me, I'm an analyst. I have a lot of value when it comes to getting investors. I'm excellent at assessing risk and business strategy, and Chris Hamilton picked that up quickly, and that's why he brought me into his world, because already the strategies that I've implemented have made us a huge amount of money, and that comes from my background, which was nothing to do with property. So when you come into property as a newbie and you go to a networking meeting and you feel like, oh, I don't know anything, I'm starting from scratch, you do. If you've worked in hospitality or even care, you are going to be brilliant with SA. If you know business inside out, if you've run any kind of business, you are going to have a massive advantage. If you have any kind of construction, trade, anything that has a skill involved, technical, your character is incredibly important in property. It's a people game. There are so many things that you should be valued for, and it doesn't always have to do with how many houses you've got. That's the worst question anyone asks anyone in a networking meeting. How many properties do you have? You are not valued by the amount of properties you have. You are valued because of who you are and what you bring to the table. And there are an amazing amount of people that are very, very valuable but don't value themselves. And I was one of them. And Cam Jo Howe is the person that made me very aware of my value. And if someone like him tells you that you're valuable, you believe it. Sometimes it takes an external influence to say, you're amazing, you deserve to be paid. And honestly, the money was not pouring in until Cam had a really, really strong word with me. So I think it's hard to value yourself. Sometimes you need somebody that you aspire to be like to say, wake up, you are incredibly valuable, you need to get paid. And if you can't do it yourself, I'll happily do it for you. Somebody else in your life that you respect in business will find those golden nuggets inside you. Everyone's got worth. Everyone's got something to give. Once you know what that is, you can say, yeah, I deserve money for this. I deserve payment for this. And it's just really about locating that kind of inner worth and let it fly.
Fantastic. So, Liz, if people want to make contact with you, how can they do that? I know you've got a Facebook page, you're probably on LinkedIn. Just share some ways of contacting you.
Yep, I've got a business page now. There's my Facebook profile, which is maxed out, I think, at 5,000. So that's Liz Baitson. But I do have a business Facebook profile, Elizabeth Baitson, and that is obviously unlimited. And there are ways to book calls with me. You can just press a button and book a call. I devote a couple of hours a day to help people find property clarity. It's free, not a funnel. Agenda. Often I tell people just don't go into property, so it's completely free service. It's because I'm really passionate that other people are clear on what they're doing.